Tonight on the Black Channel, we're doing a wellness check on the model minority because we've done a check and it clearly all is not well. The Black Channel is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting superfortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media, and this is the Black Channel, and I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the voice of Black America, the Black Authority, broadcasting to you live from the only historically black college university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. Of course, you are welcome to join us. And join us you shall, because on tonight's program here, you know, a lot has been going on, a lot has been happening, and it's time to go ahead and get caught up on a couple of things here in particular here. So on tonight's program, what we're going to be examining here is about the model minority strategy is backfiring. I want to get into that right after we do a little bit of housekeeping in that regard, because I do want to go ahead and remind people of exactly what's going on out here. As black people, from time to time, you hear folks yelling at us about supporting other people's agenda and other people's struggles and so on and so forth. And a lot of people have been wringing their hands about why it is that we've been quiet. And it's things like what I'm going to show you here tonight that are the perfect example of why it is we're quiet. They're not asking that because they don't understand. They're asking that precisely because they do understand. Here's a story here that I posted before here from the New York Post. Asian parents claim New York STEM program discriminates against their kids in favor of black Hispanic students. I want you to see what this says, though, because there's something in particular I want you to see here. A little bit of background on the story here itself. Asian parents filed a federal discrimination suit against the New York State Education Department Wednesday, claiming their kids are being unfairly kept out of a STEM summer program in favor of black and Hispanic students, which most likely means more black. The state-funded Science and Technology Entry Program, STEP, admits around 11,000 7th to 12th grade students a year for classes at 56 participating colleges and medical schools statewide. The pre-college enrichment program aims to, quote, increase the number of historically underrepresented and economically disadvantaged students prepared to enter college and improve their participation rates in math, science, tech, and health fields, according to its website. But while black, Hispanic, and Native American students can apply regardless of family wealth, Asian and white school kids need to meet certain low-income criteria, the lawsuit filed in upstate New York federal courts claims. Quote, in other words, the Hispanic child of a multimillionaire is eligible to apply to STEP, while an Asian American child whose family earns just above the state's low-income threshold is not, solely because of her race or ethnicity, the filing states. And that's not actually what it means. It meant exactly what it said. In these fields, these underrepresented Asians are not underrepresented in the medical field. They have no problems there. So the real question is, by the way, why are they not having the same problems? The allegedly biased admissions criterion has been in place for nearly 4 decades, the suit claims, adding, quote, 39 years of discrimination is enough. This has people saying these are your Asian allies. Not in 1964, but in 2024. Not in 1964, but 2024. Now, listen to this next part here. Plaintiffs include New York-based Yitin Chu of the Asian Wave Alliance, who said she was stunned when she first heard of STEP's policy a few weeks ago and decided to join the suit, which also names Education Commissioner Betty Rosa as a defendant. Now, I'm going down here. It says other plaintiffs include the Chinese American Citizens Alliance of Greater New York, Inclusive Education Advocacy Group, and Hire with Our Parent Engagement. Attorneys for both the Pacific Legal Foundation and the Anti-Affirmative Action Group Equal Protection Project of the Legal Insurrection Foundation, what a name there, are representing them in the case. The EPP, Equal Protection Project, has filed lawsuits and civil rights complaints with the U.S. Education Department against New York colleges for allegedly promoting discriminatory racial preference admission policies for academic programs. So we want you to understand that's what you're taking a look at here. So when people ask us why we come down the way we do in many cases here, just understand you don't have black people filing lawsuits left, right, every other week in federal court or any other court targeting Asians. That's my point. Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley and Kamala Harris, there are no black people who have formed legal organizations specifically for the purposes of targeting Asians. Now, that's the thing I want you to keep in mind. There are no black people getting up every week asking how can they target Asians in court to take away their rights, funding, resources. Black folk don't do that. That's not the case. And that's why I wanted to start with this story here first. I wanted to start with this story first because I wanted to put everything else that you're going to see here next into its proper context. Now, I started here in New York, but where we're going to go here next is on the other side of the country. Let's go hang out here in California for a minute. There's a story from Fox 11 Los Angeles, and I want you to see what this story has to say. By the way, while these folks are in court targeting us, and it's not just in New York, it's all across the country, by the way, while they're in court targeting us because minority coalition, of course, here's what's happening on the other side of the country.
Yeah, Christine, for more than 50 years, Suehiro Cafe called Little Tokyo down the street home. That ended today. And activists say it is just one more sign that more needs to be done to preserve the historic neighborhood.
Tony's failure doomed to fail!
Tony's failure doomed to fail!
Little Tokyo's not for sale!
A protest and a promise.
We'll be back!
Outside the now shuttered Suehiro Cafe in Little Tokyo. The restaurant moved after a long legal battle and eviction by landlord Tony Spurl. And local activists say it's the latest victim of a growing problem.
So many of our historic communities are being ravaged by gentrification. Stores that have been here for 50 years are being forcibly evicted due to landlords wanting to kick them out and bring in, quote unquote, better businesses that might.
Okay, these are not black folk doing this. These are not black people filing these lawsuits. These are not black people who are the landlords. Their black folk are their customers. They've got nothing but help from black people across the country, from New York to San Francisco. They've gotten nothing but help from black folk, and yet this is what they've been doing, by the way. This is what's happening to them while they're in New York trying to target us and in Los Angeles trying to target us. By the way, the folks that they're going to court holding hands with, those folk are targeting them. Let's hear some more.
Make more profit.
They are calling on landlords and the city to protect legacy businesses and to give them a bigger say in what replaces shops like Suehiro.
They're asking for landlords and the city. Did you hear that? Landlords and the city. So in other words, you mean the government. So you want the government to give you preferential treatment. You want the government to give you discriminatory preferential treatment. Well, isn't that interesting? The same folks who are in court targeting our children, let's be very, very clear, they're not even targeting adults. They're targeting children. I've always told you about their white supremacy. White supremacy has had a very, very interesting kinship with certain groups, and then you find out those groups operate the same. I've always taught you the white supremacy's core edict is to target children. And then you see these other folk get together and align with them, and the first thing they do is target children. They go after kids. And meanwhile, they've got other things on their plate, but you can see what they're directly demanding while they're targeting your children, our children. And yet they're saying that they want the government to give them preferential treatment.
Make more profit.
They are calling on landlords and the city to protect legacy businesses and to give them a bigger say in what replaces shops like Suehiro. Little Tokyo business owner Naoko Ikeda was in tears as she talked about a long list of friends who've been pushed out.
I feel very sad people leaving this up here from our Japanese community.
They say it's especially hurtful because the neighborhood survived for more than a century. Even after Japanese American residents were forced into internment camps, they returned to reclaim businesses or start new ones.
Okay, they return to start businesses and then go straight to work targeting black people. Yes, they hated the internment camps so much, and they hated being targeted for their race so much that they have gone on a legal jihad to target us based on race. But meanwhile, the folks they're holding hands with are making sure that they will not have an inheritance in the land and are removing them. And now they're screaming, we want the government to step in and give us, when they say a say, they don't mean a verbal say. They mean they want money. They want resources because they don't have the money or resources. They want the government to give them preferential treatment, give them financial resources while they're literally in federal court filing lawsuits to deprive black children.
To lose them now.
And more recently, my mom and I decided to take on Onzen Hardware, a store that my grandfather opened just after the war, to keep it alive, right? And in order for us to keep it alive, we had to move a store.
It's a long continuing insult because, as people know, Japanese Americans were forced into the U.S. concentration camps during World War II. And then after that, after we came back, we kept getting moved from one place to another.
As for Suehiro, activists are promising to boycott whatever replaces it. And although Kenji Suzuki is saddened he had to move his restaurant, he says the biggest heartbreak are the changes in Little Tokyo.
We're lucky enough to find a new spot, but some of the elderlies that are being displaced, they've been living here for decades. They're on a fixed income. Where they're gonna go? Why are we kicking them out? They are the reason why there is a Little Tokyo in the first place.
Okay, well, now Tony and his friends have come in to bring a little Italy or a little Europe, a weed dispensary apparently. So all of a sudden he's saying that, he's obviously objecting to them being targeted. He feels they're being targeted because of their race, and found that to be very interesting. Found that to be very interesting, how that works.
So Suehiro Cafe now has a location in Chinatown and also in downtown LA. As for its now old location in Little Tokyo, activists say they've heard that a marijuana dispensary is moving in there. We have not been able to confirm that.
So let me get this straight. He's unhappy because he's got 3 or 4 restaurants and he wanted to keep the location of the first one. He's got other restaurants. He's like, yeah, but what about my 3rd or 4th one? These are the folks filing lawsuits against black children to make sure that the next generation of black children don't even get a start of any kind. That's the point I'm trying to make here. That's the point I'm trying to make here, and the folk that they're holding hands with are targeting them. Well, we would like to tell them, or at least we would like to say here, that maybe the heat is off, and we would like to say that maybe things are going to get better here, but actually, no, the heat is indeed on. This again from Fox LA. And for those of you who didn't know, Los Angeles' San Fernando Valley taco spots face drama between one another. Now, folks, hang on to your enchiladas, because I want you to hear this story. I want you to hear this. It is something that I've been telling you about for a while, and it's something that will continue here. This is a little known thing, but I want you all to listen carefully to how this story goes.
Here in Southern California, people love street food, and you can find street vendors like right behind me almost anywhere. But these small restaurants say these vendors are creating a difficult time for them. They say the competition isn't fair.
Hot chili, large albondiga, okay. 2 crispy beef, okay. Side of rice and side of bean. Anything else?
Hot Chili Mexican Food in Granada Hills is a small, long-time family-owned business described by customers as
best kept secret in town. So we keep coming back. It's really good.
really good food, but maybe not good enough to survive the street vendor competition. Jenny Pack is the owner of Hot Chili. She says sales are down 35%.
Sales are down 35%. Well, that's not a little. Oh, boy. And yet you can't say it's pandemic related either. And by the way, don't worry. This has layers to it here. This has layers.
I'm losing. Believe it or not, I'm losing.
About a block away to the north of the restaurant on Balboa, there are 4 sidewalk vendors. To the south, a few more.
Too many. And then nothing I can do. Nothing.
Tal vez está un poco más barato.
Employee Elva Hidalgo says street tacos are cheaper because the sellers don't have rent expenses.
I mean, look at that. That's only for like $12 right there.
I hope you don't get sick.
Christopher Favela is a street vendor in the San Fernando Valley. What about the small business owners who are struggling to compete with all the street vendors?
Well, they just need to step up their game and do it better.
If it's a big restaurant.
Now, did you hear that? Oh, let me back this up now. This is Mr. Favela, and he's got some advice for the model minorities out there, by the way, who are complaining.
Street tacos are cheaper because the sellers don't have rent expenses.
I mean, look at that. That's only for like $12 right there.
Christopher Favela is a street vendor in the San Fernando Valley. What about the small business owners who are struggling to compete with all the street vendors?
Well, they just need to step up their game and do it better.
If it's a big restaurant, maybe it's a different situation. But like me, I'm struggling and I'm a small restaurant, and then I don't think the city really care.
Not only is Jenny dealing with massive competition.
I'm not Mexican. I'm Korean American.
A Korean.
Did you hear that?
Not only is Jenny dealing with massive competition.
I'm not Mexican. I'm Korean American.
A Korean American selling Mexican food.
Ay, que le dicen que China, que dónde está la China.
Elva says she has personally witnessed rude customers say, quote, "Why is a China selling Mexican food?"
Sometimes they're walking through and I say, "Hello, hola, ¿cómo estás?" And they look at me like this.
How hurtful is that?
Oh, it makes me tear. It hurt really bad.
Despite the struggles, Jenny will continue to sell her food for as long as possible.
Hola, hi. ¿Cómo está? Un momento, señora, okay? Gracias, gracias.
She's hoping city officials will do something to help small businesses like hers.
I gotta survive. I gotta pay rent. I gotta pay tax. I gotta survive.
Uh-huh. Found that interesting there, by the way. Now, this puts the comments you heard from Mr. Favela earlier here in a different light now, doesn't it?
Don't have rent expenses.
I mean, look at that. That's only for like $12 right there.
Christopher Favela is a street vendor in the San Fernando Valley. What about the small business owners who are struggling to compete with all the street vendors?
Well, they just need to step up their game and do it better.
If it's a big restaurant, maybe it's a
They just need to step up their game and do it better. Oh, boy. Yeah, boy, I'm telling you, weren't exactly expecting that now, were you? Weren't exactly expecting that now, were they? And I just couldn't help but notice, I couldn't help but notice that does sound a little familiar to me. Sounds like something I've heard somewhere else, as a matter of fact.
More money for you. You working. No more money for you. Bye-bye. Go back across the No more money for you. No more money for you.
Interesting.
Lazy. You lazy. No more money for you. Take no podcast.
All right. Yeah, I just couldn't help but notice that, by the way, that attitude seems strikingly familiar to me. For some strange reason, the attitude is strikingly familiar.
Like $12 right there.
Christopher Favela is a street vendor in the San Fernando Valley. What about the small business owners who are struggling to compete with all the street vendors?
Well, they just need to step up their game and do it better.
Street vendors.
Well, they just need to step up their game and do it better.
Street vendors.
Well, they just need to step up their game and do it better.
Yeah, buddy. I just couldn't help but notice the attitude. That's the part that kind of stuck out to me there. I kind of noticed the attitude that's been accumulating there. You start to see those kind of things and whatnot. Now, just remember, while they're sitting up here targeting black children, they're going to court targeting black children shamelessly, demonically, wickedly, targeting black children with federal lawsuits. And meanwhile, these other folk here that they working hand in hand with, by the way, because remember in Los Angeles, you've had a very clear situation where they were telling you there was going to be this Asian Latino alliance, remember? The Asians and Latinos, by the way, that's a thing out there, not just in California, but probably most expressed in California. Why the Asians and the Latinos were going to get together and gang up on black folk was what it was going to be. Well, since there's Asians and Latinos, since we've been allowed to make an economic base, we're going to go ahead and target the black. We're going to work together with each other and target the black folk here. But looks like somebody's broken ranks. Looks like they broke ranks. It looks like they've broken ranks, and it looks like folks have decided here to do things a little bit different. While you were sitting up here worried about us, while you're sitting up here targeting us, by the way, the only folks who are doing nothing to you, by the way, not doing anything to you, and yet, take a look at this coming at your blind side. Take a look at this coming at you sideways. Tough position to be in. Tough position to be in, probably because your eye is off the ball. But then again, I guess you figure that is the ball to keep in mind, is that we're going to target these black children. How wicked and evil is that? That you're going to target black children. And we've been asking the same question. By the way, where is the Asian community to talk about? Because these are campaigns. We're not talking about one little old lady getting mugged somewhere. We're talking about funded. This is basically like a shadow government funding legal assaults on us and more importantly, our children. When you see Ed Blum and the rest of his white supremacist scum kind, you notice this is why we were saying, by the way, where's the Anti-Defamation League and AIPAC and everyone else here? By the way, where are they? Ed Blum is running all around the damn Supreme Court and everything else. And yet our Jewish organizations have been completely quiet. Not a word. He's been running around for years now, and not a word has been said about that. Not a word. Certainly no one confronting this. Not a word. Not a word. And then with these other folks here, by the way, while they're targeting us, I just thought I would let you all know that, by the way, they found themselves in the crosshairs. They're finding themselves in the crosshairs now, and it's going to be a hard road to hoe because this is a monster you've helped create. This is a monster you've helped build. And now, by the way, did you notice the similarity between these two stories here? Both of these Asians or groups here are talking about they want the city to step in. They want the city to step in now. And that's the part I want you to understand. Now they're sitting up here suing because they don't want the government involved where black children are concerned. Never mind, black children have no opportunities. And yet these folks here are working on their third or fourth restaurant, and yet they're all saying, well, we want the government to step in. Now, for the black folk there, oh, no, we need to sue. And no, you need to compete. Okay, well, you all need to compete. Oh, we can't win. Okay, well, wow. Well, we're being targeted, so we can't compete. Okay, well, it's going to be a rough ride here, so you can't have it both ways. Can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. And you're finding out you won't have it both ways. You won't. You got bigger fish to fry. You've got bigger things to take care of here. Or at least you would if you actually saw it that way, which you don't, which is fine. But I just wanted to take this as an opportunity to remind you all that across the board here, you're seeing as the vice is squeezing. While they're trying to hobble our children, the folks they're working with are gentrifying them left and right because they've taken their eye off the ball. And eventually what is going to happen is these areas that they call Chinatown, sitting on all these prime pieces of real estate, the little Tokyos and whatnot sitting on these prime pieces of real estate, what they're going to find out is that they're going to be removed and they will be scattered around. They won't even be able to get together in groups. They're going to be scattered. Hard to form a community when there's one Japanese person over here, one Japanese person way over there, another Japanese person way back there. Kind of hard to make that occur. But that's what you'll be left with. And that's where they are now. See, that's what you were being maneuvered into while you were letting Ed Blum tell you, don't worry, you and I will work together to knock off those undesirables. That's it. You and me are going to get together and gang up on the children of the undesirables. And now, yeah, there you are now. There's a lesson to be learned in this regard. There's a lesson to be learned in this regard, and the silence that you hear from black society is for a reason. Because we've been watching and witnessing and seeing this occur, and we've brought it to people's attention, and folks have been kind of wishy-washy on it. So since they have decided to witness things like this occurring to our children and we're being met with deafening silence, they're not calling each other out for this kind of thing. We're being met with deafening silence. Well, guess what? Now we're being silent. You can't get upset for us for not speaking up one way or the other. We're falling back and being completely silent here. After all, You're the ones who brought these people in. You're the ones who made them comfortable. You're the ones who gave them an entryway. Because you thought that they were going to help you go after us. They were going to help you dispossess us, and then you all would sit there and get to divvy up the spoils of what you've taken from us. And meanwhile, you didn't realize that, by the way, he was already loading you up on the plate. You didn't see that coming. The reason that you didn't see it coming is because you've bought into white supremacy. All that talk about stop Asian hate and being a model minority, what you were saying was that you bought into white supremacy. Don't worry, me and them see things the same way. We both agree on the same thing about you Negroes. Yeah, but here's the problem. The problem is they're not interested in an alliance or a coalition with you. And they've already put the pieces in place to neutralize you. You're here to be useful pawns in their game. You're just pawns that they use to promote their interests and to promote their goals when they go into court. But the goal is not to go to court to empower you. The goal is to go to the courts to use you to empower themselves. And that's exactly what you see occurring. That is exactly what you see happening. It's not accidental. And it never has been. And more importantly, it never has been. You are the ones who were deceived and fooled about it here. And by the way, they will continue to do so, because every time you see something like this happen, the problem is they're in too deep. So every time they see something like this occur, they're going to come up with a rationale and some reason they're going to give themselves and say, okay, this is all right, this is happening. But they're going to stay the course. They're going to stay the course, and they are going to be waiting for that other pivot to come back where they finally get welcomed in, and that's not the way it works. So it's going to be this ebb and flow, and every time you start getting a little bit too big, you get moved to the side, and then you have to get your feet kicked out from up under you, and then you have to start over again. When you are to a point that you've got whole parts of town that are named after you and your people, and yet you're going to the city hoping that the city will allow you to keep it. Hoping that the city will allow you to keep it. Hoping that the city will allow you, that the city will step in and overturn the free market. So let me get this straight. You're going to federal court to demand that black children be subject to an open air free market society where you already have dominance and advantage, which is what you're looking for there. That's the only reason you're doing that. And yet here you are begging for the city, begging for the government to step in and protect you from the free market. You want them to protect you from the people that you've been empowering, thinking they'd go after us. Well, they certainly have gone after us. There's no doubt about that. They're also going after you. And while you're looking at us, the folks that you're helping are looking at you and saying, by the way, let me make sure we kick the feet out from up under you. That's the point I'm making to you all. This woman is Korean. These folk are Japanese. And all of them are being destabilized. She's Korean. They're Japanese. All of them are being destabilized. All of them. All of them. What I'm telling you is that the model minority strategy is backfired. And they're finding this out a little bit too late, but your model minority strategy has already backfired. You've been used for what you're useful for. You are useful pawns, and now they've made sure that your expiration date is already stamped in. They're making sure of that before they even get started. Your expiration date has already been stamped in. So you see, now it's just a process. When you follow this through to its eventual conclusion, the eventual conclusion is that, by the way, at the end, you get removed too. If you follow the game plan the white supremacists and you put together, if you follow it to its natural conclusion, you get removed also. That's the whole point, is that, by the way, at the end of this model minority strategy, you get removed too. I bring that up here because, believe it or not, folks, believe it or not, I know this is going to shock a good number of people here. I've actually got something not as usually critical to say about Roland Martin. What? Yeah, I know. Bit of a surprise and a shock to me too, as a matter of fact here, by the way. But yeah, no less than Bowling Ball Martin, by the way. No less than Bowling Ball Martin. Believe it or not. I know it's going to shock you there, but we're going to take a very brief non-commercial break. And when I come back here, yeah, believe it or not, Roland might have actually done something that was not incompetent for a change and was actually worth taking a look at. We will come back to that here shortly. Before we do, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, Venmo. Thank you very much for your support. We appreciate that here. To Mr. Ricky, thank you very much for your support. I appreciate that, brother. B1 Media is a lifesaver. Amadou Mark B, thank you very much for your support. Among that and everyone else here. Let me go ahead and take a very brief non-commercial break. When we come back, yeah, it's true. This is the Black Channel.
Hello, my name is Steve Burgess. I'm the author of this book, Guidelines for the Successful Student, a closer look at parenting your school-aged child. In this book, I've explained the role of the parent and the student in addition to what accommodations, procedures, rewards and consequences and expectations that need to be in place to ensure student success from primary to high school. This book is available on Amazon.com. For more information, please visit my link tree at Easy One-on-One, and to access my latest podcast, A Teaching Moment with Mr. B. Thank you all for listening.
A white supremacist assassin seeks revenge. Corrupt FBI agents with evil intentions. Dangerous black collaborators dedicated to treason. Occam Jeffers must defeat them all and somehow survive. One misstep and he's a dead man. Join Occam Jeffers as he looks the devil in his blue eyes and tells him, Black first. A sequel to the underground hit War of the Heart, Spirit of 1811 Publishing presents God Love Us, on sale at Amazon. Pre-order and save today. Visit spiritOf1811publishing.com and show your love.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' Natural Body Butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slaveries and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening. And on the subject here of the model minority strategy backfiring here, on the subject of that, believe it or not, we've got no less than Roland Martin, who's actually said something semi-useful here. What? Shocked me too. Damn! I know. But believe it or not, he actually did. Now, for those of you who are unaware here, Nikki Haley the aspiring to be Anglo-Saxon East Indian, was running around doing what she was doing, saying that America has never been a racist country. So, of course, she was just being completely and totally ridiculous there. But that's what you have to say there when you've sold your soul, what little bit you had. So Roland Martin actually weighed in on this. Found this to be very interesting. Roland actually weighed in on this. And I gotta tell you here, now, as you all know, I am no friend of Roland Martin. Absolutely not. I am no friend of Roland. But in this instance here, he actually was basically channeling trying to channel the new black media in himself. I'll let you hear what he had to say in response to her, because it's not really about what he had to say. Believe it or not, it's not just Roland. I'll be damned. It's Roland and Michael Harriot. What? Folks, I'm telling you, the world has spun mad, has it not? So, not just Roland Martin, these two Negroes here, between Roland Martin and Michael Harriot. No, I'm serious. Jason, what has happened? You'll hear it for yourselves.
Racism. Your mama and your daddy faced racism. Michael Harriot put out these tweets where he laid out in a thread the racism and the history of Nikki Haley. He laid out, y'all want to hear the true story of Nikki Haley? He then said in the 1920s, a nativist white nationalist movement began to rise in America. It was anti-immigrant racist, and it gave rise to what we now call the second wave of the Ku Klux Klan. What was it called? He said it's estimated that 1 in 7 white men were card-carrying members of the Klan during this movement. This is when Donald Trump's father was arrested at a Klan rally. One of the hallmark pieces of legislation during this white nationalist trend was the national origins formula. Please go to the next tweet. He lays out 1921, Congress came up with a law that limited how many people could immigrate to the U.S. from each country. That's called racism, Nikki. White Anglo-Saxon countries could come, but Eastern Europeans and other non-white countries had specific limits. In 1923, Bhagat Singh Thind from Amritsar, Punjab, India, filed a Supreme Court case arguing that the immigration quotas shouldn't apply to Asian Indians because they were literally Caucasian.
Well, by the way, a very brief history lesson for you here in this regard. But, Bhagat Singh Thind filed a Supreme Court case arguing that immigration quotas shouldn't apply to Asian Indians, we refer to as East Indians, because they were literally Caucasian. They were literally Caucasian. And the Supreme Court of the United States said, yeah, you're Caucasians, but you ain't white. But you're not. So just a brief reminder that the so-called Latinos, all of them have done this kind of thing right here to get classified as white. Everybody has tried to make their run for it except us. Everybody else has tried to make their run to say, hey, by the way, we should be honorary white people too. Hell, as a matter of fact, not just honorary, we are white people. So very good history lesson given here. So they went to argue, we're literally Caucasian. The Supreme Court said, yeah, not white enough.
Oh, really? The Supreme Court agreed, saying, yeah, you're Caucasians, but you ain't white. Next. That precedent stood until 1965, when LBJ signed the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. Why did he do it? Because black people fought for civil rights. Because of desegregation and other civil rights laws, Republicans fled the GOP.
So let me get this straight now. Black people were fighting white supremacy. Let's be very, very clear. We weren't trying to buy into the system. We were fighting white supremacy. And 20 years later, over 20 years later, these other folks were sitting up here while they were still trying to buy in and they were still trying to get an honorary white card, we went in the other direction. We were in the other direction. See, there's the critical key difference. When you take a look over their history, they were trying to get integrated and they were trying to get accepted as white. You take a look at our history, we're the only ones who got anything done, and we had a culture of resistance. That's our record. And it was because we were under no illusions that we were ever going to be accepted. We just went straight up the middle and did the real hard work, while the Nikki Haley's and the Bobby Jindals and the Vivek Ramaswamys and the Dinesh D'Souza's were all looking for a white ass to kiss or to lay up under. But what they were not trying to do was resist anything. They were trying to figure out how to get adopted. And they are still, to this day, attempting to get adopted.
These laws' fiercest opponents was the Daughters of the Confederacy. This is when they began putting up Confederate. Why did he do it? Because black people fought for civil rights. Because of desegregation of the civil rights laws, Republicans fled the GOP. One of these laws' fiercest opponents was the Daughters of the Confederacy. This is when they began putting up Confederate monuments. In 1961, South Carolina affixed a Confederate flag to its courthouse. One of the interesting results of this white supremacist backlash was the Segregation Academy. Rather than attend integrated schools, white parents created private, all-white schools all over the South. Most of these schools still exist, although they rarely speak of their origin story. Now, I don't want y'all to think that the civil rights struggle was over. For instance, an incident considered the bloodiest event of the civil rights era happened in February 1968 when cops opened fire on black students at South Carolina State. Most were shot in the back. A few months later.
Now, by the way, Roland is going through all these tweets that Michael Harriot put up, but in reality, Michael Harriot is actually going in chronological order here because he's giving you the story of Nikki Haley. So that's why he's going through all of this history right here, because in reality, I have to give credit where credit is due, and you know full damn well held and froze and thawed back out again. What? But I have to give credit where credit is due. Michael, now this was from a couple years ago, but from last year, but Michael actually had put this up in such a way, it goes in chronological order. So in reality, we're not just naming off random facts here. This is actually chronologically going through, the 20th century until you get to Nikki Haley and her parents arriving. So what he's done is he's giving you the background information of how they were not even allowed into the country. They were not white people. The court said they were not white people, even though they were trying to get classified as white people. And then he's ultimately going to bring you to Nikki Haley and her family themselves specifically. So we brought you all the way through, World War II and civil rights and the Daughters of the Confederacy. Now we come to specifically her family.
In 1969, Ajit Singh Randhawa and his wife, Raj Kaur Randhawa, took advantage of a new immigration law and immigrated to the U.S. from Amritsar district, Punjab, India. 3 years later, their daughter, Nimrata Randhawa, was born.
Okay, so just to go ahead and review that one more time there. Now, I don't want y'all to think that the civil rights struggle was over. For instance, an incident considered the bloodiest event of the civil rights era happened in February 1968 when cops opened fire on black students in South Carolina State, where Nikki Haley would one day become governor. Most were shot in the back. A few months later, in 1969, her parents immigrated to the U.S. because black folk, as you can see over on the left-hand side of the screen, that precedent stood of keeping them out until 1965 when LBJ signed the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. Why did he do it? Because black people had fought for civil rights and they were undermining our civil rights. LBJ, vicious racist. That's why he did that. But in any case, it was our efforts that made it possible for Nikki Haley's parents to even come over here, because it was the law of the land that they couldn't. And just a few years later, she was born. Just a few years later, her parents immigrated over here, and a few years later, she was born. And now here she is all these decades later telling all of us ain't no racism and there's never been racism in America. America's not a racist country. This is her. Michael Harriot drew a direct line from them being outcast to us standing up for civil rights, making it possible for them to come over here, to her being the governor of South Carolina.
Next, Nimrata's father taught at Voorhees, an HBCU in Denmark, South Carolina, and lived.
Her father taught at an HBCU?
What?
Really? Oh, well, there's a little factoid for you there. So, Nikki Haley's father taught at an HBCU. Yeah. But guess what schools Nikki Haley wound up going to? Now, her father taught at an HBCU. But where did they send their daughter?
Lived in neighboring Bamberg. Her mom taught in the public schools. At one time, my family owned the only restaurant in Denmark. So I spent a lot of time there and at Voorhees, the local HBCU. They are black as fuck. But Nimrata would never. So Nimrata enrolled at nearby Orangeburg preparatory schools, a collection of actual segregation academies, and became Nikki. Why? Because she's Caucasian, even if she isn't white.
Yeah, that isn't something that she just jumped up and did one day. That isn't.
Now here's where it gets crazy. When Nimrata became governor of South Carolina, she refused to take down the Confederate flag. She said the white supremacist banner was a symbol of heritage and history. It is possible that Nimrata believed this. See, she went to a racist school. She was Caucasian. She rejected inclusion. It's quite possible that Nimrata never knew that flag was the Confederate battle flag of Virginia. Nimrata was too dumb to know it, had never spent a nanosecond in South Carolina until a century after the Civil War. But when she became a state legislator, black people told her that it stood for white supremacy. She wouldn't take it down. They boycotted. She wouldn't take it down. When she became governor, she was told that it represented a failed war. Nimrata refused. On June 17th, the white supremacist terrorists, beckoned by the flag Nimrata supported, walked into Emmanuel AME Church and slaughtered 9 black people as they prayed. Bottom line is this here, people. Nimrata is so desperate to appeal to...
Now let me go ahead and finish what Michael said over there on the right. By the literal blood, sweat, and labor of black people, acquiesced. But here is the thing. Now they're talking about when she took the flag down. By the literal blood, sweat, and labor of black people, acquiesced. But here is the thing. Nimrata knew. Remember that school where Nimrata's dad worked when he came to the U.S.? Well, the longtime president of that school was Cleveland Sellers. Sellers was shot in the Orangeburg massacre. Many people, and I mean many people, believe the entire incident was an attempt on his life. Sellers is a civil and was actually incarcerated as a political prisoner for, quote, inciting the Orangeburg massacre. Vivek Ramaswamy, a vicious and quite frankly pathetic anti-black wannabe white supremacist, just got himself bounced out of the... As I told you all, he thinks he's running for president. He's not. He's running for fun. He just thinks he's running for president. He's not. And before the air conditioning system could power down for his concession speech, he was running to go up under Donald Trump's butt cheeks. and proclaimed that he was Team Donald. Took him absolutely no time. As a matter of fact, I think he must have done his concession speech right outside of Trump's limousine. It was disgraceful. It was cringe. It was cowardly. It was absolutely pathetic. And it was typical. And it was typical, is my point. That was typical. That was typical. Nikki Haley will be next in line, mark my words. Nikki Haley will be next in line. She will attempt to be conciliatory if she's smart. If she's not, she'll hold fast and she'll just find herself on the outside of the Republican Party for life. Because right now what she's trying to do is the impossible. She is trying to get accepted on white terms. And what she's told herself is that if I scrape a little bit more, if I lower myself a little bit more, if I'm a little more shameless, if I'm a little more disgusting, if I'm just a little more reprehensible, if I'm just a little more inexcusable, then that will be low enough. Here's the issue, folks. These people are not dumb or stupid. That's what I want you to understand. Nikki Haley is neither dumb nor stupid. Vivek Ramaswamy is not dumb or stupid. They are the lowest form. They are white supremacist wannabes. They are outcasts who are desperate to get an in. That is the long and the short of it. They are outcasts who are desperate to get an in. Nikki Haley wants to be accepted as a white person because she hasn't built anything. She does not take any pride in anything outside of it. But worst of all, she identifies with their oppressors. Not even sure if we can say oppressors, certainly with the people who are not who are not fans of yours. They identify with them. They identify with them. And what they've seen and witnessed here is, well, you know what? There seems to be a particular disdain for people of immediate African ancestry. So I can get a leg up if I go with them. But it goes even further than that, which is why I'm going back to what I was saying when I started the program here, because it goes even further than that. And Jason, what do you mean? Folks, here's the way white supremacy works. White supremacy works by pitting you against your interests. If you do form a, quote, coalition, they immediately get to work on pitting you against each other. Let your interests run contrary to theirs and their interests run contrary to yours. And that eventually you will find yourself on the losing end of it. By definition, you must. Are you willing to sell out everyone around you? You will need to be, because ultimately you will be required to. Please remember, during the debates, Vivek Ramaswamy was going at Nikki Haley hammer and tong. Do you remember that, folks? Vivek Ramaswamy was bashing Nikki Haley hammer and tong, remember? So let me get this straight. When Vivek was running for president, he was swinging on Nikki Haley unmercifully. Just as soon as he found himself kicked out of the race, what did he do? Did he go and try to snuggle up with Nikki? Hell no. He went right across the hall and said, "Don, my man, don't worry, you and me will make sure that Nikki don't make it any further. You and me are going to make sure she ain't going nowhere else." I mean, this is in the open. Talking about stop Asian hate. Here's the problem. Nikki can't say stop Asian hate. She's not identifying as Asian. So you see, she can't get the support of the Asian community, even the way that Kamala's little support from them has been, because she's divorced herself from them. So you see, she's got no Asian backup. And now that the white dudes are going in on her, she's hoping that she can get more white people to support her than support the white dudes. Meanwhile, you got Vivek Ramaswamy sitting right there swinging on her left, right, and center. And now he's with Donald. Donald's going to make Vivek the attack dog. So Vivek gets to sit up here and ravage Nikki, and Don gets to lay back and be a little bit more hands off, so you can't accuse him of going after the woman. I have warned and advised you all now for well over a decade. If you want to know where the crux of the problem is and where it really lies and what really happens, there's a reason why I've educated you all. And I've given you a phrase to remember that encapsulates what the problem is. And the phrase that I've given you here is to remember that these are backstabbing cultures. You've got folks who have been raised and weaned and brought up in backstabbing cultures. I've been talking to you all about this for a while. I want you to understand that. See, there's where we get into trouble as black people here. Folks who come from backstabbing cultures. They come from backstabbing cultures where 1 minute, 1 second, everybody is sitting up here talking to each other, and then the next minute they are plotting against each other unmercifully. When we talk about the island of Hispaniola. Damn! Oh, I'm going to go there with it.
And deal with it, nigga.
When you talk about the island of Hispaniola, can we just keep it real? That's what you've been seeing for a while there, is a culture of backstabbing. On both sides of the island, by the way. On both sides of the island, by the way. This is not confined to one side. This is both sides of the island have a very long and storied history of backstabbing culture. If I'm telling the truth, give me the thumbs up emoji in the chat room and hit the likes button for me. It's over 4,600 people in here live. If I'm telling the truth, give me the thumbs up emoji in the chat room and hit the likes button. When you take a look down in Puerto Rico, oh, Jason is getting in so much trouble tonight here. There's a reason why you see those kind of things occurring here. Because they come from these places have cultivated a backstabbing culture. Is the point I'm making. They've cultivated a backstabbing culture. A culture where it is the norm to do that kind of thing. You take a look at India, the country of India. Let me tell y'all right now, you can go on YouTube. Folks want to talk about black men and black women. Have you all seen some of the videos of these Indian females talking about they prefer black men and the problem with Punjabi men? Look it up for yourselves here on YouTube. You can see these women speaking for themselves. Not Jason Black speaking for them. You can see these women speaking for themselves. Speaking for themselves. Next, we can travel over to Africa if you'd like to there. I think Nigeria alone is a perfect example. The Igbo, the Yoruba, the Hausa Fulani, the Delta, and everybody in the 24-hour-a-day campaign to undermine each other. When they come over here to America, it's the exact same thing. Let me be very, very clear about that. By the way, when they come over here to America, it's the exact same thing. As a matter of fact, among Nigerians, believe it or not, for those of you who don't know this, some of you who live in New York, you're aware of this more than a lot of other folks because we don't have a lot of Nigerian enclaves in America like that. But among folk in New York there, y'all already know that, by the way, if the family is beefing with another tribe bad enough, they would rather see their sons marry a black female from the soil here in America than to see their son, if he's Yoruba or Igbo, marry outside the tribe, marry one of them. Am I making that up? No, I'm not. No, I'm not making that up. If they beefing hard enough, they'll be like, I'd rather have my son marry one of these descendants of the slaves' daughters than to marry one of these Igbo or Yoruba. I'd rather have him do that. I'd rather have him do that. Don't you understand that that's the whole reason why they've brought these folks over here and allowed them like that? Let me remind you of the teachings of our immortal elder, Dr. John Henry Clark, when he was talking about how they were bringing slaves out of Africa and what they did. When they brought them to the Caribbean, they would bring them there in large lots. They bring them there in large groups. When they dropped them off in the Caribbean on their way to North America, they would drop them off in the Caribbean in large lots. And they found that to be very preferential because they came from the same cultures. They spoke the same language. And as far as they were concerned, well, if they speak the same language and from the same cultures, it'll make it easier for them to cooperate and work that way. Yes, it did make it easier for them to cooperate and work that way, but it also made it easier for them to rebel that way. Because they come from similar cultures and similar backgrounds and speak a similar language, and it makes it easier for them to work for you, but it also can make it easier for them to rebel against you. So by the time you get to North America, they say, yeah, we breaking all this up. Yeah, we breaking them all up. And you know, a few over here, a few over there, up the river, down the river, side of the river, spread them all. So by the time you get over here, they're broken up into much smaller pieces, and that became the norm. When you have the slave codes and everything, yeah, don't even let them get together in groups. This is after the rebellions are kicking off. Yeah, as a matter of fact, don't let them get together even in groups. Don't let them do that at all. They adapted when they understood that. So that's why you have today, they have no problem bringing these folks over here, and they bring them from as many different areas as they can. So this is what I mean by you got all these Caribbean folk corralled over there in Queens, New York. And I say Caribbean, but that's not what they say. They only say Caribbean when it's politically feasible, but every other day of the year, I'm Haitian, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Jamaican. That's what it is on the ground. This has been a very useful tool. It's been a very useful tool. In Manhattan and in the Bronx, when you're dealing with the Dominicans, that's been a very useful tool. Very useful tool. These small groups and whatnot, and all you have to do is show some preferential treatment to one or two. That's the method you use. You don't select all of them. You select one or two. You give them preferential treatment, and everybody else is gonna go into vicious killer mode to try to get the same results. And you won't even have to gear them up to stab the others in the back. They already came with their shanks. They already came with shanks in hand. Somebody show me, where is Nikki Haley's East Indian support? Where's her support? Furthermore, where is Vivek Ramaswamy's? Where's his support? Show me where it is. Hell, for that matter, show me Kamala Harris's, but at least we can actually show some Asians who'll be seen dead with her You can't find, show me where Nikki Haley's Indian support is. Take a look at just how quickly and readily they abandoned her. Take a look at how quickly, I say abandoned her, but I guess they would have had to be behind her in order for them to abandon her. So I guess you can't be abandoned when there was nobody there to begin with. And they've got you chasing this apple that if you help them to destabilize the black folk here, that don't worry, you will be elevated in the color caste system. And imagine what's going to happen to Nikki Haley when this election is incontrovertible and she starts having to admit and concede that you're not gaining any traction because you're not white. Can you imagine what she'll be doing and saying then? Now, behind closed doors, she's going to acknowledge it for what it is. Now, in public, she's not going to say much of anything, but behind closed doors, she'll acknowledge it for what it is. She'll acknowledge it for what it is. But I've warned you all and taught you all about this plethora of backstabbing cultures where you've got these folks that come over here and the next thing that happens here is straight to the knife in the back for you. So much of this is a facade. So much of this is a facade. Let me go ahead and give you all a brief history lesson here since we're talking about the Asians and talking about Japan. Let's be very, very clear here, folks. There's a reason why you got a Chinatown over there and a Koreatown way over there and then a little Tokyo way back there. Because these folks have fought vicious, bloody wars against each other and still do to this day. Please remember, folks, North Korea and South Korea, for those of you who are unaware, the Korean War has never ended. Folks, if you were unaware of this, the Korean War never ended. World War I ended. World War II ended. The Gulf Wars ended. The Korean War has never ended. At no point was that war ever declared over. At no point did both sides sit down and say, okay, here's the new normal. At no point did that ever occur. North Korea and South Korea have a demilitarized zone imposed by the United States. But please understand, at no point has that war been declared over. They are still in a state of hostilities to this day. North Korea and South Korea are in a state of hostilities to this very day. Right now. This thing can jump off at any time. It can jump off at any minute. China and Taiwan. Chiang Kai-shek left the mainland and went to Taiwan. Taiwan and China are in a state of hostilities to this day. To this day. The only one that you can say has pretty much mostly been considered to be over is China and Japan, but don't speak too quickly on that one. China was humiliated after the rape of Nanking. For those of you who know your martial arts movies, from Bruce Lee to Donnie Yen to Sammo Hung, talk about your Hong Kong cinema. Do you realize what those movies are usually about? They're usually set in World War II with Chinese men who, if Japanese soldiers humiliate them, and then Bruce Lee or whoever the Chinese person starring in the movie is kicks the crap out of them. They still make those movies to this very day. So what this tells you is that culturally, the beef is still on between China and Japan. Nigga, chill for what? The beef is on. They will never forget what happened to them. They are humiliated about that to this very day. To this very day, China is humiliated about it. And let's be very clear, I've told you all about this before. China wants a rematch. China has been chomping at the bit for a rematch with Japan ever since. China would love to say, you know what, I want to get that win back. China would love that. They want that more than they want Taiwan. To be able to go ahead and, as far as they're concerned, to right that historical wrong. They would love for that to occur to this very day, which is why Japan still holds war games with the United States. Not so much because of the cessation of World War II, but because they understand, yeah, China's got a population of 1 billion people today and a grudge that's 7 decades long. That they have made very clear they have not completely given up. And if China gets its opportunity, they're like, yeah, about that little World War II thing. Yeah, we've been waiting a minute to settle this up. We've been waiting a minute to settle up with you. And I can go even further into it than that, by the way. You want to start talking about ethnic regions in Japan. We can go even further into it if you want to and get down to ethnic regions. Those of you who don't know, if you don't live in a place that has, a large Chinese population, it's not enough to just say you're Chinese. They want to know where in China you're from. You talk about black folk talking about where your people from. And if you start trying to talk a black person or anybody else, you start trying to talk Chinese to them, you tell them you've been to China or they folk from China, they want to know where specifically you. Don't tell me you from China, where specifically you from. Beijing, Guangzhou, we want to know exactly where your people from in China. Those are the questions you're going to get. Those are the questions. So it's not even enough to just say you Chinese. They want to know where you from over there because they might have beef with your folk. They might have beef with your people from over there. So just in case you one of them, we want to find out where your people from, just in case. Just in case. We want to find out where y'all from. This is real talk. Real talk. For those of you in Los Angeles, that's the thing in Los Angeles too. Chinatown is a place there, but there's certain folks who don't fool with each other there like that. Like if somebody comes after them as a group, okay, they might put down their swords for a minute, but other than that, it's like, no. As soon as we get finished dealing with them, we don't really fool with y'all. Not really. And what I'm saying is that the folks who are bringing them all over here, they know this. They know that they're dealing with a fractured cultural psyche that is just as apt to stab each other in the back as there are not to, because there's nobody to hold them accountable. But what I'm saying is there was nobody to hold them accountable over there. That was the norm over there. Now they've come over here, knives out. Now they've come over here, knives out. So Nikki doesn't have any support. These folks in Little Tokyo, they don't have any support. There's not enough of you because you don't form a big enough block to be able to make that happen. You don't have a big enough block to be able to make such a thing there occur. So that's not going to be able to help you in this regard. And too many of your other folk here are just as likely to sell you out if somebody makes them a good enough deal. The Chinese are okay selling out Little Tokyo. Little Tokyo is okay selling out Little Korea. The Latinos are okay selling out everybody. And they've got you sitting up here saying, well, don't worry. As long as we get the Negroes, everything will be fine. And meanwhile, you sitting up here worrying about expressing your racism against black people, Nikki Haley, and Donald Trump has already made it a foregone conclusion that you will never be president. So you're just basically holding a campaign for no reason. You won't even be able to play spoiler. But you got to sit up here and smart off at black people. So that's the most important thing. These symbolic gestures of disrespect. That's what you end up with. So I hope it was worth it for you, because that's as far as you're going to get. And the very people that you spent all this time sucking up to and kissing ass to and thinking that one day eventually they were going to show you some respect, and they were going to, after all your years of dedicated service and ass kissing, that they were eventually going to give you the star on the forehead and give you the reward you've been waiting on for all this time since you were in grade school. And now it's all for nothing. The model minority strategy is backfired. It was a lie. It was a lie from day one, and you fell for it. It was a lie. It was a lie from day one, and you fell for it. You fell for it. Now you're all going to find out how bad it really is. However, you might disagree. Therefore, the telephone lines are now open, and the number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933, your personal access code to the blackest radio program in existence, the only one of its kind on planet Earth today. And as always, you're welcome to join us. I would like to send a big shout out here to everyone, and I do mean everybody, who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal or Venmo. Thank you very much here to my man, Mr. Richburg. I appreciate your support. Thank you to Brenda Starr. And my dude, Mr. Dinkins. No black agenda, no black vote. Cut the check, reparations now, of course, absolutely. Thank you to all of you. To Walter, Najee, and everyone else, thank you very much for your support here, folks. And that means a lot here, because I know you could be doing other things on the weekend. You could be doing other stuff. You could dedicate yourself in other areas. So I want you to know that's a very heartfelt thing to me. As you know, they've been messing with the ways that people can contribute to the channel if they choose to here, because obviously we're making a difference. We're making a difference. So for all of you who have done that, thank you very much for that. I see every single person here. Wadey and everyone else, thank you very much for your support here. The telephone lines are now open. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933, your personal access code to the Black channel. Let me get caller from area code 323. You're on live with the Black channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, good evening, big brother Jason. This is brother Elijah calling out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Brother Elijah out of Philly, what's on your mind?
Hey, brother, excellent broadcast tonight. I got some questions for you. All right, I'll be quick, big brother, because we got to get to the other brothers and sisters on the line. You brought out with this whole thing with the Chinatown. If my first question is, if New York City and Los Angeles both have their way, do you think that that's going to definitely set a precedent? Because you know this is going to be coming to San Francisco as well. Do you think that's going to set a precedent how they're going to deal with Chinatowns or all these other Asian towns all over?
Yeah, I mean, basically that is what you're seeing here. The goal has never been for them to be allowed to keep it. The real estate they're sitting on is too valuable. Let's go ahead and take a look, first of all, at New York City. All right, you're dealing with New York City, Canal Street. Anybody who's been there, I've been there many a moon. So in New York City on Canal Street, that's right there at the financial district. Right there at it. They've been encroaching on it for years. So you go around the way there, it goes to the Brooklyn Bridge. So, I mean, yeah, y'all got to go. The real estate you're sitting on is too damn valuable. You got to go. So look for them to be in the crosshairs. Because of their ethnic clout and their financial clout, you're not going to have a situation where they get boloed and steamrolled out. That's not what's going to occur. What's going to occur to them is death by 1,000 cuts. That's what's going to happen to them. So they want to build a jail. They want to build a homeless shelter. So basically, what's happening is a place that otherwise has been left alone. Chinatown in New York has otherwise been left alone. You haven't really seen anybody trying to do anything in that area other than the people who live there. Now you're seeing folk who don't live there and entities saying, oh, we got plans for the real estate you're on. And what they're going to do is just say, oh, we just want this building over here. We just want this block over here. And that's it. That's what's going to happen to them. Now, Chinatown, Los Angeles. Take a look over there on Cesar Chavez. That's another piece of prime real estate. I've been all up through there and whatnot, going up there to the viaduct. and whatnot. So believe it or not, when you get there, things actually thin out a lot, by the way. When you get up there on Cesar Chavez, where Chinatown is, things actually thin out a lot when you get up there. And what I'm saying is, wow, you could build a whole bunch of condos here. You could build a whole bunch of condos here with no problem whatsoever. Okay, if I saw that 6-7 years ago, of course the white folks saw that. Of course they see it every day. So it's like, oh, don't worry, your number is coming up too. Well, Jason, how will this occur? The problem will be for the Asians is affluence. That's going to be the problem. Affluence and long age. Because what's happening is you have a bunch of mom and pop operations. Now, here's where a corporation becomes a superior vehicle for these things. When you have a mom and pop operation, you are dependent on your offspring. The only way you can, quote, keep this in the family is if one of your children is willing to give up establishing a life of their own, and they instead decide to take on yours. Now, this works with a corporation when you can just hire any old body and you're not required to recruit them from your bloodline. But when you have to deal with a specific situation where you're going to have to get someone from your bloodline to do this, well, this ties your hands because you've severely limited the number of candidates who can keep this thing in the family. What I'm telling you is that it now becomes a game of mathematics. It now becomes a game of numbers. You're eventually going to run out of heirs. All your kids can't sit around waiting to run the restaurant or waiting to run the hardware store. Furthermore, many of them will not even want to. Furthermore, many of them may not even want to live where you are anymore. A lot of them might see themselves living on the beachfront, living in Aspen, living in the suburbs. Well, some of them living in the desert. What I'm saying is it becomes very, very challenging to keep this up. When you all came over here as new immigrants, it was easy for you to be married to the land and married to this building. Your children, two generations later, will not have the same emotional attachment. And this will make it incredibly hard for you. So that's why at this point now, the developers and stuff it's just going to be a numbers game. We're willing to wager that you're going to run out of heirs who are interested in upholding this. Meanwhile, our corporation is eternal. We'll be back in 20 years or 40 years. Yeah, you might not want to leave, but we're wagering that your sons or your grandsons or your daughters or your granddaughters will. Eventually, they will. And then you'll all be gone. So we're just going to eat you bite by bite. And in a century, we'll just be talking about where Chinatown and Little Tokyo used to be.
Yes, sir. I got another question with this situation with Nikki Haley. I'm not even gonna go in on this one because all the scholars already did. It's not about really her. It's about her Indian culture. I always wanted to know, for people who come from areas of rubble, areas of filth, just absolutely disgusting all over the place. I always wanted to know how is it they can find it in their hearts to hate on the one specific ethnic group, the FBA family, who helped them out this whole time, and they have just as much or even more blatant hatred for us than they would ever have for their original colonizers.
Because when you've been humiliated, you have a choice to make. You will either erase that humiliation by standing up for yourself and becoming more of what you are, or you'll attempt to erase that humiliation by integrating yourself in with the people who humiliated you and tell yourself, I'm on the winning team. So when you see the Viveks and the, Nikki Haley's, what they're saying is, I want to be with the winners. And if all I got to do is sell the rest of you out, then I'm winning. This is why I was going here before, what I'm saying. You're looking at the methodology and the strategy they've been using is that we will find one or two of you and we will see if we can get you to put your individual interests ahead of those of the group. And what you're finding is that there's no shortage of individuals who are willing to put their own personal interests ahead of the interests of the group. And even to the point of doing shameful, dishonorable things. But once again, you know, what is honor to somebody who's already sold themselves out? So you're bringing up concepts that mean something to people who have a code of honor. Brother, I challenge you all to show where these codes of honor that you're talking about, that we acknowledge and that we adhere to, show me where those exist in India. Sir. Show me in India where those exist. Show me.
Yes, sir.
So these are common concepts to us. These are foreign concepts to them, which is why they have their color caste system. But then again, you see the same thing in Mexico and South America and other places. So they're real quick to sit up here and start dividing up and say, okay, stab these folks over here in the back so we can come up. So that individual interest thing can sometimes get extended along color lines. But once you've neutralized these people of the other color, well, remember, it's your cultural practice here to stab everybody else in the back. So when you run out of the others to betray, you eventually start betraying each other, regardless of group. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 434. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, my name is Charles Walker. Like I said, I've just been listening to your actual show today. It's kind of interesting. Because guys, really, I don't feel any sympathy for the guys. What's happened to the Asians? Because it's like a long time coming. I mean, it seems like
caller from area code 321. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Jason, how you doing? This is Antoine from Orlando, Florida. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. You know, I think what it is that as as Black Americans, basically, we're the only group that's been around majority white people, meaning that everywhere else the white supremacists went, the other groups of non-blacks were the majority. So they had to, create a culture of backstabbing, or if there was already there, put it to effect. Because I think that's why we're so nice, because we think that everyone sees what we see, but they don't. Whether it's other black foreigners, Asian foreigners. Matter of fact, I watched this guy. He lives in China on YouTube. He's a white guy. He talks about in China they love white people so much they have something called white monkey jobs, where they just have white person just sit there. He knows nothing, but because a white person is at their job, it makes it look more prestigious, and they get better deals in China just because of that. And apparently this happens in a lot of places in Asia.
Absolutely.
So,
you've been colonized. I mean, we understand colonization in all of its forms for the evil that it is. These other folks are completely, at best, they are oblivious, and at worst, they're accepting of it.
Yeah. Every time I talk to someone like that, like, for example, with the black foreigners, they have the whole, he's mixed. They're colored, right? For the light-skinned people. And we try to tell them that it doesn't matter. Just that one lick of black blood erases all of that. The perfect example is Meghan Markle. You see all the racism she's go through, and let's keep it real. She doesn't look black. If it wasn't for her black mother, she could have slid in there easily.
Yeah, I mean, she's got enough markers to let you know, okay, this ain't no Anglo-Saxon. It's not Caucasian. So she's got enough markers to show that. Like I said, that nose is kind of sticking out. Those lips are a little too prominent. So if you can't fool yourself into thinking that she's had some sort of surgery, it's going to kind of stick out. The thing is, she's actually more offensive, truth be told. Meghan Markle is more offensive to them because this is a white woman. Well, this is a black woman whose features are not readily offensive. Think about that for a few moments. Her features are disarming. To somebody somebody more like a Halle Berry or whatever. Okay, your features are going to be a little more offensive. To a Meghan Markle, though, the fact that she's able to make you do these double takes, that makes her less offensive. That means you let your guard down. So in the eyes of white women, she's actually more dangerous because she can make white men do double takes the way Mariah Carey could make them do double takes. that kind of thing right there where you're not just readily and immediately offended. Well, that's actually dangerous. We got to do something about her. So have you all noticed there's been no sisterhood to come to her defense? Forget about the tabloids and whatnot. Where are the white women in journalism or anything else to come to her defense as a woman?
Oh, yeah, I believe it. Like, someone said this to me, and I see it all the time. If you pay attention, you never see a pretty black woman next to a quote-unquote pretty white woman in magazines and stuff. If they do, they always try to put the big black man next to them, even in talk shows. You never see, like, a bad black woman next to a quote-unquote bad white woman. They don't want that contrast, like you just said.
Well, it's about having options, and if you have a chick here who is that light, these folks are not here to compete. They want it given to them. Meghan Markle presents competition, even at a social level, because what we're saying is, okay, if she's acceptable, then how much Africanness is acceptable now? So do you see how that becomes the thin end of the wedge right there? Is, okay, well, if she's legit, how much more is legit? Where's the line? So just remember, from their perspective, this constitutes an existential threat. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller Miracle 804. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Ben, Richmond, Virginia.
All right, Ben in Richmond. What's on your mind?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up a lot of the different information about Asian culture. It's been a long time coming. Black folks, we really don't have colorism problems and white worship problems to the extent that Asia does. I've been in and out of Asia quite a few times, and it's not even close. We have a little banter here and there at best about color, and we get over it. No such thing in Asia. Long-standing caste systems that have been around for centuries and ingrained in the culture. And heck, you could even say it's ingrained in India. You could say it's ingrained in the spiritual systems.
Oh yeah.
So it's India. They got they treat the Dalits so bad that those poor folks had to try to imitate. They had the Dalit Panthers over there, trying to imitate foundational Black American political moves to try to get themselves some.
Oh, brother, I'll go further than that with you. I'll go further than that with you. You all actually have, there are actually modern day examples of this right now. Jason, what are you referring to? Netflix. Have you all seen the Korean shows and movies on Netflix? Have you all seen those?
No.
You know, there's that movie about this family that for South Korea, for example. Oh man, it's bad. There's this movie, I forget the name of it. They'll probably know it in the chat room or whatever. But there's this movie where this family basically moves in, this Korean family. They live in this little underground shanty, and they're it's like a closet with a whole damn family in it. And one of the family members, they find a way to get this rich family. They impersonate the housekeeper, and they basically smuggle their way into these rich people's house, and so they're living down in the damn basement and whatnot. And this is actually not exaggerated in their society. This is not actually exaggerated now. This is a system over there.
Wow.
Hell, they're talking about like Samsung, the Korean government. Okay, Parasite. That's the name of the film, Parasite. Thank you. In the chat room there.
Okay.
Tony, his name is. Thank you very much. The name of the film is Parasite. Well, that actually, the director made that to say, by the way, this is a commentary on South Korean society today. This is what we living with today. There are, like, for example, the Samsung Corporation. You all can look this up on YouTube for yourselves. Folks are dying at those plants. They're dying. They've been dying from chemical exposure and this, that, and the other. But the corporation, because of their families, they're untouchable. So these are families that run these things, untouchable. Move over to Japan, same thing. Honda, Toyota, Nissan, same thing. So you got the folks in the society, then you got the folks at the top of this whatnot, and this is what it is. No black people required. We're not required in the equation for that to be occurring. So what I'm saying is y'all can go ahead and take a look at that right now. And I'm just naming one film, Parasite. There's a bunch of movies on Netflix that really do show that dynamic in the society there. So people really underestimate it because they don't know anything about it. But folks are literally over there dying as a result of this. Literally. With these other folks like, hey, we the folks at the top and we just gonna do you.
Yeah, Samsung has a long-standing history of human rights abuses and having a government-supported aristocracy, business aristocracy, where their influence extends to the United States. Heck, and this is another thing. They've had a lot. They've allowed some of their Samsung heiresses and heirs to get into Ivy League schools without being qualified.
Absolutely. We talk about that legacy thing and whatnot. I mean, the cheating scandals, let's be very, very clear. That Ivy League cheating scandal, Asians were overrepresented in that. I'm very glad you brought that up, that Ivy League cheating scandal. They talk about the white folk, but we were the ones pointing out, by the way, hey, there's a lot of Asians involved in this. While they're sitting up here trying to file federal lawsuits talking about our money shouldn't be held against us. Well, yeah, take a look at what they've been doing with it. So thank you very much for bringing that up.
It's amazing. And, another thing, their success, and Dr. Amos Wilson brought this out, their success is based on white investment. Every crumb of it. Japan was done for. White investment came in there and saved their necks. China was done for. White investment came in there and saved their necks. All their progress and everything they have is been due to white investment, European and American investment, and they have allowed them to be second place in the world. This is, none of this was on accident. None of this is not orchestrated. None of this stuff is due to their dent in industry and whoop-de-whoop. No, they became super capitalists under the fake red guise of communism.
Well, I mean, they know they've been given their position. I mean, you make an excellent point. They've been given this preferential treatment. They're painfully aware of it, and everything now is aimed towards the goal of maintaining that and preserving it. The only problem is there's a poison pill in the ointment. You are a useful tool to the extent that you're a useful tool, but you're just about to run out of your usefulness. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get called from area code 415. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Don P. I'm calling from San Francisco.
Don out of San Francisco. What's on your mind?
Man, you've been knocking them down on this broadcast. I'm like going, okay, let me try to keep track and keep pace on all of the ones that you've been knocking down. We can start with them Southeast Asians. We can start with F Your Mommy and Nimrata, the alleged great-great-granddaughter of Nimrod. We're going to keep her neck under that name. These fools are late to the trough and think they can eat. They think they're wiser than the individuals who have been subject to this theater of terror for over the past 400 years. Let's jump off of them because that's the three Coonsters. You got Kumala, F Your Mommy, and Nimrata. But you were jumping on the Asians and like, they can't do this. So I'm in Cali. I'm watching. I saw the formulation of their union, and I love it. I love it. I love watching it fall apart because, yeah, They put themselves together to come against us. And usually they were getting used. That's why old boy set up his sidewalk cafe, which there are a lot of them here. Set up his sidewalk cafe. It's like,
Well, you know what it is? It demonstrates a useful art of war there when you think about it. So you allow these other people to come in and they've got their storefronts, right? But remember, every time that they make a move, Brother Neely Fuller is just so prescient in this regard, that white supremacy always takes both sides of the argument. They're always playing both hands against each other. So everything if they give you something, they're going to give somebody else something that counterbalances out. So you never get an advantage. So, okay, you Asians get a storefront. We're going to let the Latinos set up on the street out here, right next to you. So if you get something, we're going to make sure they get something. So every time, and if we give them something, we're going to give you something else to make sure we balance it out so that no one is allowed to have an advantage. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. You know, it's very reminiscent of George Orwell's 1984. For those of you who never read the book 1984, you've got the world is divided up into 3 different nations and whatnot. And basically, there's 3 different nation states that run the world, and 2 of them get together to gang up on the 3rd one. The problem is that they're not strong enough to knock off the 3rd one. They never are. So they can form coalitions with each other, but they're not strong enough to knock off the 3rd one and establish a 2-state order, much less a 1-state. And that's what continues to happen. So every time they do something for these folks, if y'all didn't notice it, they do something for you, they sit up here and let you have these shops, and then next thing you know, they allow these other folks to set up unlimited food stands on the sidewalk. I thought that as more money comes into an area, as more money came in, there were supposed to be more strict and stringent standards, remember? As more money comes in, I thought it's supposed to be harder to do business. Isn't that the way that usually works? Isn't the way it usually works, y'all, that as more money comes in and things become more upscale, it becomes harder to do business? We want you to go clean up those sidewalks. You know, all the stuff they do to us. You got to clean up the sidewalks, and, we're going to bury you in regulations? Folks, could the turkey leg hut set up shop on the sidewalk? I mean, they would bury you with regulations. They would bury you with coding. They would talk about the lights. They talk about, do you have sanitation? Do you have insurance? You know, they would sit up here and bury you with regulations. And next thing you know, you wouldn't be there. Well, isn't that the way this usually works? Don't they usually bury you in regulations and bury you in red tape to get you off the sidewalks? They don't make it easier to do business. They make it harder. And yet here, they've made it astonishingly easier to do. Well, if a person didn't know better, they'd swear that this was a tool being used to regulate other people. So the guys on the sidewalk are not on their way to being a mega corporation or being, highly influential in that regard, but their presence ensures that the people in the storefront don't ever get there either. Do you all understand the economics of this? The folks with the storefront may have been on their way to bigger and better things, but by you allowing all of this unfettered, competition right next to them, who are allowed, the key word is allowed to undercut these other folks, you're giving them an advantage, a competitive advantage. They're allowed to undercut these other people. In the process, you're making sure that neither one is able to get an advantage over the other. They are both present. They can both compete. They can both struggle, but neither one of them is ever going to win this. They will both have just enough to come back the next day and struggle and do this all over again. But you're ensuring that they will not get far enough that one overcomes the other. And in the event that one seemingly does, you're going to go put your finger on the scales to tip it back in their favor a little bit more to make sure that they can get back competitive again, just enough to make sure the folks on the sidewalk don't take over. So the folks on the street front are making sure the folks on the sidewalk don't take over, and the folks on the sidewalk have been specifically empowered to make sure the folks at the storefront don't take over. Welcome to the art of war. Caller from area code 469, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Thomas calling from Dallas, Texas.
Thomas from Dallas, was on your mind?
Jason, you had me worried, man. I almost fell off my couch when you said Roland Morning had something smart to say. I said, oh, Lord, no.
Shocked the hell out of me, too.
To come check on you.
Shocked the hell out of me, too.
I was headed down 20, man. I said, oh, no. I said, they got him. No, but the lady, the kung fu lady with the tacos, I mean, she was damn near in tears, man, when she said that the Mexicans was on code that didn't want to buy from her. She want to be able to set up in that neighborhood and sell tacos, and so she was upset about that. And so that's the way we look at it too. When you come set up in our neighborhood, and what black folks got to do is get on code, stay on code like they do. And what needs to happen, like they couldn't set up in an Italian neighborhood because they got the muscle. They'll come through there and break some legs, get them street vendors up out of there. But, I look at this as, like you said, this is the art of war that they planned. I mean, white supremacy is gonna turn on all of them. We've been able to see this through Black Walls. They shut down and blew up all our Black Wall streets, no matter where it was at, Tulsa, Oklahoma, no matter where it was in the United States. So we've been through this already. They haven't been through this yet, but it's coming.
Well, you make a very good point that I didn't get to touch on here at the beginning of the program, which is that, by the way, hey, ma'am, what happening to you, that's standard procedure for your people with us. Koreans took over the hair game and shut black folk, specifically targeted black folk to shut us out. They are the most notorious for that behavior. So yes, ma'am, from Korea, I couldn't help but notice, if you have a problem with that kind of behavior, I just couldn't help but notice that your folks have been exercising that kind of behavior towards us now for decades. We made it possible for them to get over here, and they immediately went to work targeting our industry, targeting our women, targeting us specifically to say, oh, we don't do business with y'all. We don't do business with you. Okay, now, So is what good for the goose good for the gander? By the way, if you have a problem with that type of pathology, perhaps you want to have a sit down with your brothers and sisters and cousins and nieces and nephews and say, by the way, this practice that we've carried on for so long, take a look at what it's doing with me. Now, let's move over a little bit. Let's slide over a little bit because we're in California. Do y'all know how many soul food restaurants out there in California got Asians running them? Louisiana Seafood, by the way, got Asians that run it. I know, I've seen it. Right down the street from Tan Burgers. I've seen it. I'm not telling you what somebody else told me. I'm telling you what I've seen. I couldn't help but notice that. And what I'm saying is that the reason that their businesses are working is because black folk will patronize them. We do not practice ethnic economic warfare against them. But by the way, ma'am, from Korea, your people have been practicing that against us from day one and continue to this very day. Now we're supposed to get sympathetic because the Latinos are like, by the way, we're going to stay on code like y'all are. So we're supposed to be sympathetic for you, and we're supposed to sit up here and demonize the Latinos for doing what you've been doing to us and continue to do to us the whole damn time. No, if it's okay for you to do that with us, then it's okay for them to do that with y'all. I'm not saying it's okay. You said it's okay. I'm not saying that that's okay to do. You said that's okay to do. When you've been doing this for decades, oh, ma'am, do you realize how big y'all's bill is now? Do you realize how high you ran that bill up? So you're looking for us to come in with sympathy and wag our finger at them and at Mr. Favela and whatnot. It's like, hey, man, make your burritos, dude. Do your thing. Do your thing. Do your thing. It's like, hey, if your people don't do business with them, oh, well, I guess what she needs to do is go to school and take some IT courses. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. I'm not saying that to be mean. What I'm saying is that, by the way, there has been zero Korean backlash in the Korean community for this practice of targeting black people economically. Korean people have never said a word. But when the TV stations show up for them, all of a sudden the violin starts playing and, oh, woe is me. All of a sudden we're all one people and whatnot, and all of a sudden that's wrong. And yet you all have been making this standard practice against us for decades. We've been talking about it for decades, and y'all were just like, oh, well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Well, I suggest you get a broom. You got crumbs to sweep up. Caller from area code 804, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Cassie from Henrico, Virginia.
All right, Cassie from Henrico, what's on your mind?
I beg your pardon?
What's on your mind, Cassie?
Oh, okay. I've been looking at things internationally because a lot of that speaks to what is happening to the Asians. About a year ago, I think it was a year ago, they broke in New York. They had their own police station. Well, when they shut that down, and what they found was they were communicating directly with China. That's what they found.
Yeah, the Chinese government's had like agents over here, basically, operating as a Chinese police, violating the people, their expatriates' rights over here and whatnot, surveilling them and monitoring them.
And secondly, my other point is this, and I'll bring it all together. Now, China is challenging white people internationally, economically. And that, along with everything else, don't make white supremacy paranoid. They're already paranoid. Now, you notice how all over the country, they're shutting down Chinatowns, because that's not the only those aren't the only Chinatowns. There's other Chinatowns, but they're literally shutting them down almost.
Well, definitely going forward here, they've been put in a trick bag. That's the thing that they didn't understand. This whole thing of Asian expansion, the money for it and everything, all of that has come from America. And that's why China's in an economic downturn today. They were suckered into, this investment trap that they've done everywhere. They did it in Japan, they did it in China. And when you start doing business with them, you become dependent on them because it's not about the dollar, it is about the system that is in place. They've got a 300-year head start on you for capitalism. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 301. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, how's it going, Jason? This is Barry calling out of D.C.
Okay, did you say Barry out of D.C.?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, Barry out of D.C., what's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to commend you on an excellent broadcast once again. Like you said, this is happening all over the country. Every Chinatown is being shut down. Same thing in D.C. Our mayor here, Mayor Bowser. Some of the sports teams here left and went across the river to Virginia. Those tax dollars left. So, of course, now the Chinatowns, all the business people there are complaining about the fact that they're going to end up moving. And so, like you said already, they're complaining, asking for the city to step in with additional funds and all this sorts of stuff to help them sort of float their businesses and to keep them afloat. But, of course, that can't happen because the sports teams have moved across the river. Governor Youngkin in Virginia has already pretty much used the tax dollars to help float and to build those professional stadiums over there across the Potomac. So, again, this is just happening all across the country. There's these businesses that the agents have. To be honest, they just don't have enough tax dollars moving in or moving out of them to float the city in terms of supporting local businesses, in terms of them being able to support trash pickup, bus trains. They just don't have enough of that coming through those businesses. So at this point, the banks have to come.
I've been there. And the reason why Chinatown in D.C., I actually went to D.C. When I did my film Gentrified and I showed the Chinatowns and various places around America, I actually did go to DC, but DC's didn't really make it in the film. And it didn't because it's so sparse. I mean, I don't think you can call it a Chinatown. It's like there's a Kinko's next door, you know. It's in my opinion, you can't even really call that a Chinatown anymore. That's been just so badly gutted and, you know, disinherited. So the folks trying to hold on to the few strands of hair they got left, you know, it's just the writing. I can't even say the writing's on the wall. The game is already over. So maybe you're looking at the Capital District or whatever, and you're saying, oh, we can hold on to this property here. Maybe it'll get more valuable. You don't have the social support. You certainly don't have the numerical support. And I doubt you have the political support either. So Chinatown in D.C. right now is more of a historical anecdote than an actual literal place that you could go to.
Yes, I agree. And again, for the Mayor Muriel Bowser, they literally told her the day before the decision was made, which shows a lack of respect for her as a leader, quite frankly. But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, all the Chinatowns are completely being gutted. The banks are, I guess, they're taking the cities back, and they're going to make pretty much a country full of high-rise apartments. Seems like.
Oh, brother, there's too much money. They're on prime real estate once again. I mean, if you're in a Chinatown in America, but even in D.C., that's prime real estate. But that's prime commercial real estate. That's not even prime residential real estate. That's prime commercial real estate. So the pressure is on to get you up out of there. So what they're going to do is economically strangle you by taking anything big that, you know, the passerby and the foot traffic business that could keep you afloat and whatnot. No. When we make this a whole commercial district, there's really not a place for you. And this is how we strangle you and wither you on the vine. So they call it gentrification, but in reality, it's just withering you on the vine. You're in an economic stranglehold. Eventually, you will run out of capital. You run out of funds. You'll run out of heirs. You don't have any political or ethnic support to speak of. And it's just going to be a waiting game at this point. So you can sell it to us willingly, or you can wait until you lose it and we'll come get it then. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 504. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Good evening, Jason. This is G from New Orleans.
G from New Orleans. What's on your mind?
Yeah, brother. Great broadcast. I had a question I wanted to ask you, and then I'll follow up with a statement. With what's going on, of course, with the gentrification of these Chinatowns that you've been talking about, I'm just curious your thoughts. Do you think or what impact that would have in, I guess, in about next 20 or 30 years with regards to them stating that the Asians will actually outnumber the black community? I think Dr. Claude Anderson even said that black people are going to be like number third or fourth because they're even talking about the Asians increasing in numbers.
Yeah, but here's the issue with that. I mean, that could occur, not really sure. But the real thing is, remember, they said Asians. So you're bringing in a lot of different folk when you use that name. You're not just talking about what we would consider to be the Orientals. So China, Asia, you're not talking about them. I mean, you're bringing in India now. So I guess we don't count Russia as part of Asia. But my point is, you're bringing in a lot of folk under that umbrella. And the problem is, we count them in a monolithic way, but they don't see each other as a monolith. There's the problem. So yeah, they'll have the numbers, but let's be very, very clear. The Indians don't have the Chinese back, and the Chinese don't have the Indians back, and the Japanese don't have the Chinese back, and the Koreans don't have the Indians or the Chinese back. So I'm just saying, they're doing that because what they do is they keep up with people and they catalog them. They're keeping up with their numbers and whatnot. Yeah, they are. But this idea that they're going to form some economic or political bloc, they've had plenty of opportunity to do this in other places, and they're not going to do that because they're not. The Indians are not trying to have Asian power. They're trying to have Indian power. The Chinese are not trying to have Asian power. They're trying to have Chinese power.
Chinese power, right. Right. Yeah. And my statement was going to be, just thinking of what you were saying earlier. I live here in Louisiana just like you, and I distinctly remember Bobby Jindal's governorship. And the man was just a plain fucking disaster. And I don't understand for the life of me, groups of people like Jindal, Ramaswamy, and Haley, whose parents are Indian immigrants who 100 years ago would have been pushed back on the fucking boat to their land if they tried to come here, how they can have such disdain and hatred for Black America, for Black
because
people.
we didn't bring them. It's for the same reason that, you know, Mexicans coming across the border expressed the same thing. We were the things that made it possible for them to come here were before their time. They didn't get a front row seat. They didn't have to work with us to make that happen. We made that happen on our own. Or should I say, the government, I'm sorry, we created the catalyst that led the government to do that. These folks were not present for it. They didn't witness it. They didn't watch it. They damn sure didn't work for any of it. They couldn't. There weren't enough of them here to do anything. So they're basically hearing this second and third hand, but they're not being told. I mean, they're not hearing it second and third hand. They don't even know that this occurred. That's why Nikki Haley is saying that, because she has no inkling of the history that, by the way, your folk were excluded from even coming here. I'm sorry, let me correct that. Let me correct that. She actually does know. She's actually done an interview where she actually did acknowledge that. But you see, it doesn't have the same sting to her because she got let in after all that was over. So for her, it's not even a bad memory. She wasn't even born before it was happening. She wasn't even born. She was born after all the work was done, and now she's gotten to enjoy the benefits and the fruits of it. She didn't have to work for any of it. So as far as she's concerned, it was white folk who did that for her, not us. See, those are the people that they talk to. When they bring the Africans over here, it's white folk at the immigration office. It's white men that the Mexicans meet in the fields telling them, you work harder than the Negroes, that's why we're letting you come over here. They're not being required to do a history lesson. They're meeting white folk who are telling them, we prefer to have you. Well, the white folks run things. Well, it must be true because the white folks run things. So, yeah, that's right. We're really that great. That's what's happening.
Yeah. And these, it's like what Dr. Claude Anderson said. These immigrants come over, they get unearned benefits, and that's what Nikki Haley, Jindal, and Ramaswamy have gotten. And they think because they can do all these things, or their skin is not dark, they don't identify, although Jindal's was darker than me, they don't identify, or they identify rather with the dominant society, that they're going to get a pat on the head. I'm hearing Ramaswamy is trying to get the vice presidency position with Donald Trump. That's never going to happen, no matter how much he kicks his ass. No.
Bobby Jindal, the only reason that Bobby Jindal became governor was because of the disastrous administration of Kathleen Blanco. So without those events, without those events and Hurricane Katrina, that doesn't happen. He had already run for governor the previous election, got trounced. So if Katrina doesn't happen, Bobby Jindal isn't even a footnote. If things had not been in such disarray, that wouldn't have opened up a lane for him. Bobby Jindal seemed to be an otherwise intelligent person, and from books I imagine, but he's also one of these ideologues who want to try to remake Louisiana into South America, a la Pinochet, and privatize everything and all this old garbage. So, I say, he was absolutely disastrous. And by the way, you've never heard from him again either. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. You never heard from him again either. You see, these folks, when they come over here and whatnot, what they're trying to do is erase their refugee status. If you really want to get to the heart of this and the root of why it is that they are so agreeable to attacking us and disregarding what has been done for them by us, it's because they are desperate to escape and to erase their refugee status. So what they're doing is rewriting their history and rewriting their experience, but erasing the refugee part of it. Erasing the we had to run and flee part of it. So they're rewriting themselves as these industrious individuals who didn't need any help from anybody. Which is what Nikki Haley is the lie that she's telling today. We're literally telling her story. You got help every step along the way. What the first order of business these people do in order to make themselves feel better about their refugee status is rewrite their history and say, and by the way, we didn't need any help. We did it all on our own. You see the same damn lie everywhere you go. And that's what I'm telling you right now. The DACA kids and the migrants and all these folk who are being given billions of dollars, listen, we all know what's going to happen. Within 10 years, those kids are going to be telling you, my dad came all the way up here from Venezuela with nothing but the shirt on his back, and he did it all on his own. While he's literally sitting there getting millions of our dollars at the Roosevelt Hotel and sitting there in Chicago at the police station, while they're literally getting given food and clothing and health care, their kids are going to come back in 10 years and tell you they didn't get any help from anybody. They did it all on their own. You're all just lazy. We did it all on our own. No, we're not refugees. We didn't flee. We did it all on our own. You got footage of them sitting at the border in these huge camps, waiting in the cold and everything else to come across. Oh, we did it on our own. We pulled ourselves up. We just worked hard and did it by ourselves. While they're literally sitting there begging for clothing, WIC vouchers, food, housing assistance, medical care, for you to pay for all of that. And then they're going to tell you, oh, I did it on my own. My dad did it by himself while he's literally sitting there in front of the Roosevelt station in the soup line. We did it on our own. Caller America code 412. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good evening, Jason. My name is Tracy. How are you?
All right, Tracy, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. How are you?
Hi, Tracy from Pittsburgh. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm looking at your sign up here where it says, please save Chinatown, stop Asian hate. But meanwhile, 100 of them are coming across the border illegally, coming in from China, underground network, and they're talking about save Chinatown. So I'm looking at all them people that you have on that picture. How many of them are illegal immigrants? How many of them their H-1B visa had expired? How many of them never went back to China? And so I'm just trying to understand why they so against something, but they're allowing their people to come in. And I need to know, where are they putting them Chinese people at that's coming in? Well, a lot of them are men because they keep them out on a low. But we know a lot of them are coming into the United States illegally, coming through the border, paying $30,000 to get over here, to get to the Mexican border. So I need to know why they don't want are they against their people too for not coming here illegally?
You know, that's I also want to point out to folks here that, by the way, there's the one guy on there. He's got the Save Chinatown sign upside down. Mm-hmm. I'm like, brother, you are in such a hurry to defend this nonsense that you got this. You're not even holding the sign right. So can we get that corrected first before you do anything else? Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller number code 845. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Caller America code 815. 845. You're on live.
Oh, he almost picked it up.
Okay. Caller America code 845 is busy making grits, so we're going to let him go ahead and get back to doing that. Well, folks, like I say here, the model minority strategy is backfired. You can see the writing on the wall here. They thought they were going to neutralize us, and all I've done is do my job as the black media to point out to all of you that I've done the math, I've crunched the numbers, I've taken a look at it, and it has already been undermined. The end game for them has already been written out. They just didn't know it. They just didn't know it. As time goes on, they're going to start to realize it. And you're going to see these anti-black coalitions break down when the Ed Blums eventually turn their knives on the very Asians who are helping him. See, they don't understand how white supremacy works because they're willfully ignorant. But you all do know that, right? Eventually, Ed Blum is going to turn his knife on the very Asians who are helping him. The very ones who are sitting there, the arguments that they're making, see, they don't understand is I'm white and I say so. You see, we're the only ones who have a legitimate legal claim, and what they're trying to do is knock down all the legal claims that we have built over the last century. But they're not knocking them down to establish a new just precedent. They're knocking them down so it's easier to ignore everybody else. You don't even have any standing to begin with. So when Ed Blum gives you the swerve, they're going to give you the swerve, and eventually they're going to swing this thing so that you don't have, they're going to start taking things from you and telling you what you don't have a right to. When he gets done, he's going to be telling you what you don't have any right to. That's what he's going to be telling you. And he's going to get the same Supreme Court that you went to thinking you were going to target black people. He's going to go back to them and say, yeah, one more thing, we got to deal with these Asians now. Yeah, they've been getting preferential treatment. We need to seal up that border there. We need to check these visas. You know, too many people are paying to be able to get into the country and whatnot. We need to review that. And, oh, yeah, there's a bunch of them paying to get grades in these schools. And, well, who's the investigators? Not Asians and white folk. Yeah, it's going to be on white and I say so. It's going to be on white and I say so. Let me go ahead and take one more caller here. Let me get caller from area code 516. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, brother Jason. This is Adam again from Queens, New York. Spoke to you last night.
Okay, Adam from Queens, what's on your mind?
Well, it's interesting because this is like, I remember not too long ago, there were a lot of white people in the streets of Charlottesville, tiki torches, chanting out, "Those people will not replace us." I don't want to say the word on your broadcast because I don't want to cause anything. But the moment, then you look maybe a couple years later, there's a Jewish woman on a council speaking, saying that young black youth is the biggest threat to Israel. And then it's like, okay, now it's blacks are we're anti-Semitic. Same thing with Asians. I mean, I'm from New York City, and we as black folks, we mind our business most of the time. We don't bother nobody. And when I seen this rise of this anti-Asian, it's like, what? And then I'm watching Professor Black Truth, and he's sitting there showing you an Asian dude running over a black person purposely, trying to kill him. This is just nuts.
Well, like I say, when the incontrovertible evidence is in front of you there, I recommend that you pay it attention. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. As I say here, folks, the strategy is backfire for the folks who thought they were going to do that there. And I'm just doing my job as the black media to demonstrate and illustrate to you all that you can see that they're setting the bricks up. They're setting up the dominoes to knock them down later. These other folks are helping them. But like the movie Schindler's List, they will be the last ones put on the train. They think that they're reserving a seat at the table for themselves, but in reality, all they're really doing is ensuring that they will be the last ones who get put on the trains. And when it happens, it will come out of nowhere for them. It'll come out of nowhere. Seemingly out of nowhere. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we are here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, you want to go and check out our groundbreaking best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m., Gentrified, Race War, all available on DVD and streaming. Go to blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program here on PayPal, Venmo. Thank you very much for your support. We appreciate that. They've been trying to put the squeeze on that, but I appreciate everyone here who has shown their support for what we do. It does make a difference, as you are aware. It's 2024, and we are going to continue the work that we've been doing with your help. I appreciate each and every one of you who has done that, despite the swerves they try to throw at us. So thank you very much for your support. I appreciate that. Thank you all for tuning in to tonight's program, live or recorded. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, black is the future.